Single mom alone at a wedding, Mafia boss said. Pretend you're my wife and dance with me. At her cousin's wedding, Elara Wynne had finally accepted she was invisible. Right up until the most dangerous man in the room touched the small of her back and said, quiet and certain, "Dance with me as my wife." Before we see what she does, drop a flag emoji in the comments so I know where you're watching from, because if this were your family, you'd want witnesses too. The Ritz-Carlton ballroom glowed under a chandelier that could have paid her rent for a decade. Marble floors, white roses, and polished people blurred together under the light. The orchestra played something slow. Couples turned in easy, practiced circles. At a table in the very back, half hidden by a pillar, Elara sat alone with a lukewarm glass of water and heels that already hurt. She shouldn't have come. The invitation had arrived 3 months earlier on heavy cream cardstock, Marina Locke and Elliot Crane written in gleaming gold. Elara had known from the weight of it that the night would be expensive and painful, but her mother had insisted. Family is family, Elara. You go. You hold your head up. So here she was, 26, single mom, 2 jobs, wearing a borrowed navy dress that almost fit. The room was a parade of things she'd only ever seen in magazines. Gowns that would never hit a clearance rack. Suits that fit like a second skin. She recognized a local politician, an actor from a streaming thumbnail. No one looked toward the back corner. Growing up, she and Marina had only seen each other at holidays. Marina arriving in a new dress every year, Elara in something her mother had found at a thrift store and carefully mended. "Cute dress," Marina would say, eyes on the stitches. "Vintage is so brave." Now Marina sat at the head table in a lace gown that clung like liquid light, blonde hair perfect, fingers flashing with a diamond ring big enough to catch the chandeliers. She laughed at something her new husband said, head tipped at the exact angle every photographer wanted. Elara glanced at her own reflection in the dark window. Dark hair twisted up herself, stubborn chin, blue eyes ringed with fatigue. Not ugly. Just normal. And in this room, normal might as well be invisible. The music slid into a softer song. On the dance floor, an older couple waltzed with the kind of ease that comes from decades together. She thought of Noah, 4 years old, probably asleep by now in their tiny apartment, wrapped around her one-eyed stuffed elephant. Daycare, rent, groceries. Every extra shift at the diner, every night cleaning offices, every ache in Elara's back was for that little girl. She checked the time. She'd done her duty, sat through the ceremony, clapped when the officiant pronounced Marina and Elliot married, smiled in background photos, pushed food around her plate that cost more than her week of groceries. She picked up her clutch and stood. If she left now, she could be home in 40 minutes, kissing Noah's forehead and pretending this place didn't exist. She'd taken 3 steps toward the doors when Marina's voice slipped clean through the music. "Leaving so soon, cousin?" Elara stopped. Marina stood a few feet away, champagne flute in hand, bridesmaids fanned behind her like pastel shadows. Her smile was wide. Her eyes were sharp. "I suppose you have to get back to your little job," Marina said lightly, just loud enough for nearby tables. "Is it waitressing right now, or cleaning?" "I forget. There are so many entry-level options." Heads turned. Elara could feel attention settling on her like heat. "I have a daughter to get home to," Elara said. Her voice stayed level, but her fingers clenched the clutch until the cheap metal clasp dug into her skin. "Thank you for inviting me. It was a beautiful ceremony." Marina's smile sharpened. "Oh, right. The little accident. How old is she now?" 4. Marina went on, tipping her head in rehearsed sympathy. "It must be exhausting raising a child alone. But then, when you lie down with trash, you can't be surprised when it gets taken out, can you?" For a heartbeat, the music felt distant. Elara's vision pricked at the edges. No one moved. No one said, "That's enough." People simply watched over the rims of crystal glasses. "Excuse me," Elara whispered. Anything louder would crack. She turned away, fixing her eyes on the doors and the slim promise of cold air outside. She managed one step. A hand slid to the small of her back, large, warm, steady, stopping her gently but completely. "There you are, darling," a low voice murmured at her ear, wrapped in an accent she couldn't place. "I've been looking everywhere for you." Ryden's hand burned at the small of Elara Wynn's back as he drew her into the center of the ballroom. The music swelled. Conversation stumbled. Faces turned toward the unknown woman in a navy dress and the man everyone pretended not to fear. "This is insane," Elara whispered, trying to follow his steps. "You can't just tell everyone I'm your wife." "I can," Ryden murmured. "And I just did." "Smile, Elara. Marina's watching." Over his shoulder, she saw Marina Locke at the head table. Champagne splashed down her perfect white dress, eyes wide. "Why me?" she pressed. "You don't even know me." Ryden spun her. Her heel slipped, but his grip tightened, steady. "I know enough. Enough to decide you needed a fake wife. Enough to see a woman being hunted by her own family," he said quietly. "And I don't like predators who choose easy prey." "You're not saving me," she muttered. "I don't need saving." "Then call it a deal." His mouth dipped close to her ear. "Play my wife tonight. Make them believe it. In return, no one here treats you like you're invisible. Not Marina. Not her husband." Her first instinct was to tell him to go to hell. Her second was to picture Noah asleep with her one-eyed elephant and remember Marina calling her daughter an accident. "Why me?" she asked again, softer. "Because when everyone else looked at me like a rumor or a weapon," he said, "you looked at me like a problem you didn't have time for." She almost laughed. "So I annoyed you, and this is my punishment." "This," he said as the song crested and he drew her closer, "is your revenge." The final note hung in the air. Applause rose. Ryden didn't let her go. He guided her off the floor, the crowd parting without being asked. "Who are you?" she blurted. He only smiled. "Walk with me." He took her into a shadowed alcove behind a wall of white roses. "Elara Wynn," he said. 26. Single mother. 2 jobs. Daughter named Noah. Her stomach dipped. "You checked up on me?" "I don't walk blind into anything," he said. "Especially not into a family war." "Family what?" He nodded toward Marina, still glaring. "She's been whispering about me for months. Calling me unstable. Dangerous. Telling useful people that anyone who works with me will regret it." "And will they?" Elara asked. "Regret it?" He seemed amused. "I'm a businessman." She didn't look away. His smile tilted. "My grandfather used another word." He held her gaze. "Yakuza." The word sat between them like a blade. "And you just told me that here," she said slowly, "to a stranger. If you were going to run," he said, voice low, "you would have done it the moment I touched you." "This ends when the reception ends," she said. "I play along, then I go home. You go back to whatever this is. We don't talk again." "If that's what you want," he agreed. The rest of the evening blurred, his arm around her waist, his voice smooth as he introduced her as his wife, Marina's fury burning from across the room. Later, Ryden walked her through the quiet lobby to a waiting black Mercedes. She should have refused the ride. She didn't. Chicago slid past the tinted windows in streaks of light. "You were brave tonight," Ryden said at last. His hand rested palm up on the seat between them. "Most people crumble when Marina sinks her teeth in." "No," Elara said. "I was petty. I liked watching her choke on her own rage." "That's not petty," he said. "That's honest." Her fingers slid into his before she could stop them. He simply curled his hand around hers, firm and warm. When the car stopped in front of her worn brick building, humiliation burned through her. Peeling paint. Flickering streetlight. A world away from crystal chandeliers. "Thank you," she said, pulling her hand back. "For whatever tonight was." He caught her wrist gently. "It was the beginning of something, Elara," he said. "Whether you admit it or not." He pressed a plain white card into her palm. No logo. No title. Just his name and a number. "If you ever need anything," Ryden murmured, "day or night, call me." Cold air slapped her as she stepped onto the cracked sidewalk. Hours later, in the small bedroom she shared with Noah, Elara lay awake while her daughter breathed softly across the room. She turned the card over and over between her fingers. She should have torn it up. Instead, she slid it into the drawer beside Noah's photo. Just in case. 3 weeks later, Elara woke to find her whole life quietly, methodically coming apart at the seams. For 29 days, the check sat in Elara Wynn's nightstand like a live explosive. Sometimes she swore she could hear it ticking under the cheap wood. Every time she opened the drawer for a hair tie or a faded tube of lipstick, her eyes snagged on those too many zeros and on the other thin rectangle beside it, Ryden Takashi's card, his name in elegant black ink. One promised safety. The other promised danger. Both promised change. On day 3, Noah's daycare pulled her aside. "We're raising rates. New owners." Elara smiled, nodded, and went into the bathroom to throw up quietly so her 4-year-old wouldn't see. On day 5, she caught her landlord looking at her door with a measuring tape. The next morning, an official-looking notice fluttered on the peeling paint. "Building sold, all tenants must vacate." Marina, she thought, while burning her throat. Of course it was Marina. By day 7, after another, "We're really sorry, we've decided to go with someone else," from a job application that should have been a sure thing, Elara cracked. She took the check to the bank, half expecting alarms to go off the moment the teller touched it. Instead, the woman's eyes widened. "The funds are definitely available, Ms. Wynn." Walking out with the receipt, Elara felt dizzy. One deposit, and her entire life had tilted off its usual axis. She moved fast. She had to. Within a week, she found a new apartment, a small but bright 2-bedroom in a safer neighborhood, with a little park across the street and a decent school down the block. No mold creeping up the corners, no suspicious stains on the carpet. The kind of place she'd always walked past and thought, not for people like us. Now it was for her. For Noah. She paid off every bill that had been stalking her for months. Overdue utilities, medical co-pays, a credit card maxed out on emergencies, and cheap groceries. She even opened a college fund for Noah. Seeing those numbers on the screen, the future suddenly looked less impossible. And every night, when the apartment finally went quiet, she lay in a real bed that didn't sag in the middle and stared at the ceiling, turning 2 questions over and over like stones in her hands. Can I trust him? What kind of mother would I be if I said yes? Ryden didn't pressure her. He only called. The first time, it was awkward, 2 people on opposite sides of a world they were pretending to understand. By the end of that call, they were still strangers. By the end of the second week, they were something else. She learned the shape of his voice in the dark. The way it went almost boyish when he talked about summers in Kyoto, running through temple courtyards with scraped knees and pockets full of stolen sweets. The way it dropped low and rough when he mentioned his father, a man built out of iron and expectation. The silence when he spoke of his mother. She loved music, he said one night. Piano. She used to say good people carry music inside them. My father used fear. She used lullabies. How did she die? Elara asked softly. There was a pause. A rustle, like he was turning something over in his hand. In a crossfire that had nothing to do with her. Wrong place. Wrong time. In my world, that's all it takes. Her chest clenched. I'm sorry. Don't be. I tell you because I need you to understand why I'm so afraid of losing the people I care about. The people I care about. He didn't say her name, but it hung there between them anyway. She told him things she hadn't said out loud in years. About the night Noah's father looked at the pregnancy test, then at her, and chose the door. About working double shifts while her mother watched a baby so colicky Elara sometimes had to cry on the fire escape just to breathe. About Marina, perfect, poisonous Marina, who had spent their entire childhood proving that some people were born in the light and some were meant to live in the shadows. "You're wrong," Ryden said quietly. "You were never meant for the shadows." It should have been cheesy. It wasn't. Not when he said it like that. Flat, certain, like it was simply a fact of the universe she'd somehow missed. By the third week, Elara found herself checking the time, waiting for her phone to buzz. She'd catch herself smiling at it, cheeks warm, stomach flipping like she was 16 instead of a worn-out 26-year-old juggling rent and daycare. A part of her hated that. Another part clung to it like oxygen. On the 28th night, he met Noah. He arrived at the new apartment exactly when he said he would, dressed in a tailored suit that did nothing to soften the coiled danger in his posture. The building's hallway, with its scuffed baseboards and faint smell of old cooking oil, looked absolutely wrong around him. Noah peeked out from behind Elara's legs, clutching her one-eyed stuffed elephant. "This must be Noah," Ryden said, dropping to a crouch so he was level with her big, suspicious eyes. "I'm Ryden." He offered a palm-sized gray elephant, softer and newer but clearly chosen with care. "I heard you might be an expert on these." Noah stared at the toy, then at him, then at Elara. "Can I keep it, Mama? If you say thank you." "Thank you, Ryden," she said carefully, testing his name like a new word. Something unguarded flickered across his face when she got it right. He looked almost shy. The deadly man from the ballroom, undone by a 4-year-old with pigtails and serious eyes. For the rest of the evening he sat cross-legged on the living room rug, letting Noah pile every toy she owned in his lap, asking her questions about elephants and preschool and why glitter was clearly a weapon of mass destruction. His suit wrinkled. He didn't seem to notice. Elara watched from the doorway, arms folded tight around herself, heart doing unfamiliar things. This was the man whose organization made grown men move out of his way. This was the man teaching her daughter to say, and giggling when she mangled the syllables. Her decision stopped being theoretical. That night, when Noah finally collapsed into sleep clutching both elephants, Elara found Ryden in the tiny kitchen, leaning against the counter, his broad shoulders making the cramped space feel even smaller. "Well," he asked quietly, "have you decided?" She could hear her pulse in her ears, feel every fork in her life path standing in this narrow strip of linoleum between a broken past and something unknown. Elara took a breath that felt like jumping off the edge of everything she'd ever known. "Yes," she said. "I'll marry you." The way his face lit up, like someone had just opened all the windows in a sealed room, made her knees go weak. "Then, Elara Wynne," Ryden said, stepping close enough that she could feel the heat of him, his voice roughened with something that sounded dangerously like relief. "From this moment on, you are no longer alone." Her throat tightened. "We'll see about that," she whispered, but she didn't step away when he reached for her hand. Because, for the first time in years, she actually believed him. Elara Wynne married Ryden Takashi in a private garden behind his Chicago estate, an oasis of lantern light, late summer roses, and quiet elegance. No 100 guests. No photographers. No spectacle. Just Ryden, Elara, Noah scattering petals, and the few people he trusted enough to stand within arm's reach of the woman he was vowing to protect. Her dress was simple white silk that flowed when she walked. His eyes followed her as if she were the first dawn he'd ever seen. When he slid the ring onto her finger, a band of platinum with a single, breathtaking diamond, his hands were steady. Hers weren't. "You don't have to be afraid any more," he murmured as he drew her close after the vows. But Elara didn't feel fear. She felt something terrifyingly worse. Hope. After the ceremony, while Noah napped inside with her new elephant clutched to her chest, Ryden held Elara behind a carved wooden screen in the garden. Not kissing. Not rushing. Just holding her, forehead to forehead, breathing the same air. "Tell me what you need," he whispered. "I don't know yet," she admitted. "Then I'll wait," he said. "However long you want." He meant it, and that undid her more than any kiss could have. But happiness never comes alone, not in Ryden's world. Within weeks, Elara began to notice the quiet choreography of danger around her. The subtle bulges under the jackets of men who just happened to be near the house. The way black SUVs idled at the gates longer than normal. How Ryden's voice changed, tightened, when he answered certain phone calls. He didn't hide his life from her, but he didn't show her everything either. Just enough that she could feel the tremors before the quake. One evening, she found him in his study, shirt sleeves rolled up, tension carved into the lines of his shoulders. Papers lay on the desk, maps, photos, names she didn't recognize. "Trouble?" she asked. Ryden lifted his gaze. Those dark eyes softened instantly, like she was the only person who could turn the storm inside him into quiet. "A rival family in Tokyo," he said. "They want territory. They want leverage." His jaw tightened. "They want me gone." Elara stepped closer. "And what do you want?" "To keep you and Noah safe." It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't performative. Just truth. Raw and cold. He hesitated. "My mother died because of a feud like this. Wrong place. Wrong night. I will not let that happen to you." Before she could answer, a new headline exploded across social media the next morning. Elliot Crane, Marina Locke's billionaire husband, bankrupt, exposed for fraudulent investments. Marina's empire, her perfect life, collapsed in real time. The mansion gone. The cars repossessed. Her name dragged across every gossip outlet. And Elara. She felt nothing she expected. No triumph. No thrill. Just a quiet ache in the place where all that cruelty used to land. That afternoon, while Ryden strategized with his lieutenants behind closed doors, Elara made a private call. Arranged for anonymous payments. Enough to keep Marina off the streets and out from under crushing debt. When Ryden found out, he stared at her like she had cracked open a door he'd never known existed. "You helped the person who tried to destroy you," he said softly. "Why?" "Because I refuse to become what she is," Elara answered. "Hate is heavy, Ryden. I'm tired of carrying things that hurt." He touched her cheek with a reverence that stole her breath. "You have a heart I will spend the rest of my life trying to deserve." She swallowed. "Heart. Then kiss me." It was the first time she had asked him for anything. And he answered with a kiss that felt like a vow. Steady at first. Testing. Then deepening, pulling her in with a hunger held back too long. Her fingers curled into the front of his shirt, his hands slid to her waist, anchoring her as if the world might tip sideways. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Ryden whispered against her lips, "I think I've been in love with you since the moment you walked across that ballroom pretending you didn't see me." Elara laughed, the sound breaking like sunlight across the room. "You're impossible." "But yours," he murmured. Life settled into something almost normal after that. Almost. She learned Ryden's rhythms, the quiet mornings when he cooked for her, badly but earnestly. The way he always found Noah first when he walked into a room. How his hand reached for hers in the dark without him fully waking. She also learned his shadows. Nights he came home late and tense. Phone calls that made his posture go still. Meetings whispered about behind closed doors. The threat from Tokyo grew louder, spreading through the edges of their life like a hairline crack in glass. Ryden's organization tightened security. More guards. More protocols. More unspoken what-ifs hanging in the air. Elara told herself they were safe. She believed it, until the night the alarms screamed through the house. A siren split the dark like a blade. Guards shouted. Boots thundered down hallways. Somewhere outside, gunfire snapped through the cold air. "Noah!" Elara gasped, heart slamming into her ribs. She sprinted for her daughter's room. Ryden caught her halfway there, breath sharp, eyes blazing. "Safe room. No. I'm not hiding without you." "You will," he growled, gripping her arms. "Elara, please." But the house shook from an explosion near the gates, and her answer tore out of her. "You promised we face everything together." Ryden froze. Then something in him broke, or aligned, and he nodded once. "Together," he said. "Stay behind me." He took her hand. Gunfire cracked outside the walls, and the three of them ran for the reinforced door as the enemy closed in. The safe room sealed with a thundering lock. Elara pulled Noah into her arms, heart racing so violently she felt sick. Outside, war raged. Inside, Ryden pressed his forehead to hers. "If anything happens," he began. "Nothing will," she cut in fiercely. "Nothing." But the door shook. Dust rained from the ceiling. Someone was coming. Someone who wasn't supposed to find them. And the handle began to turn. The reinforced door shuddered again, metal groaning under the force on the other side. Noah whimpered, burying her face in Elara's chest. Elara held her tighter, eyes locked on the handle as it twitched. "Ryden," she whispered, voice raw. He stepped between them and the door, shoulders squared, jaw set in a way that made him look carved from steel. "If they breach, I want you behind me. No arguments. I don't need protection. You're my wife," he said softly, deadly. "You are the only thing I will never risk." The door jolted again, then stopped. A beat of silence. 2, 3. Then, "Ryden. We have them. Stand down." His men. Elara's knees nearly gave out in relief. Ryden was already moving, unlocking the steel barrier. As the door swung open, armed guards filled the hall, tense, wounded, but alive. "We neutralized the intruders," one reported, breathless. "The threat is over." Ryden let out a single exhale, the kind a man only releases when he's been holding the world together with both hands. He turned back to Elara. She was shaking. Noah was still clinging to her. Ryden stepped in, one arm wrapping around both of them, holding them like they were the axis around which his entire life spun. "It's over," he murmured against Elara's hair. "I'm here. You're safe." She didn't know how long they stood like that, all three pressed together, trembling in the aftermath of terror, but eventually he lifted Noah into his arms. "Let's get you both out of here." The attack changed everything. It didn't matter that they'd won. It mattered that danger had reached his home. Had found Elara. Had found Noah. Ryden Takashi walked into his office the next morning and made a decision the entire underworld would feel like an earthquake. He stepped down. Not fully. He couldn't ever fully withdraw. But he handed day-to-day control to 3 lieutenants he trusted with his life. He cut ties with the most volatile operations. He negotiated alliances that would have taken others years. He strategically disassembled the parts of his empire that drew the most blood. He didn't do it for peace. He did it for her. For them. When he finally returned to their bedroom that night, Elara was sitting at the window, knees drawn up, staring at the dark garden. "You're quieter than usual," she murmured when he joined her. "I ended it." She blinked. "Ended what?" "My father's shadow." His hand found hers. "The life that made me dangerous to you." Her breath caught. "Ryden, I didn't ask you to. You didn't have to. I knew the moment I held you and Noah in that safe room. I won't bury another woman I love. I won't let violence choose my fate. The word love slipped out before he could stop it. Neither of them pretended not to hear it. Elara leaned her forehead against his temple. Then we start over. Together. He kissed her, long, slow, without fear. Months blurred into something beautiful. Something ordinary. Something Elara had never dared imagine. She opened her bakery, Noah's Nook, in a sunny corner building with windows that smelled of warm bread and childhood. Locals lined up for her cinnamon rolls and delicate pastries. Ryden visited every morning, always pretending he needed something important from the display case when all he really wanted was to see her smile. Noah thrived. New friends, new school, new life. Ryden learned to braid her hair. Learned which bedtime stories made her giggle. He was a father not because blood demanded it, but because love did. A year later, their son was born. A boy with Ryden's eyes and Elara's impossible smile. They named him Kenji Win Takashi, a bridge between two worlds that no longer felt at war. The bakery flourished. The house felt lighter. Ryden rediscovered laughter, a sound Elara swore she would protect for the rest of her life. But the moment that sealed their future forever came on their second anniversary. Ryden told her to dress up. No explanation. No hints. Just that same unreadable glint in his eyes that had first stopped her breath in a ballroom full of strangers. A sleek car took them to the Ritz-Carlton. The same doors. The same marble floors. But this time, the ballroom was empty. Ryden had rented the entire space. Thousands of white roses blanketed the room. Candles flickered along the balcony rail. A string quartet waited quietly in the corner. When Elara turned in awe, Ryden was already standing at the center of the floor, hand extended. "Dance with me," he said softly. His voice was deeper, steadier than the night they met. "Dance with me as my wife." The same words. A completely different world. Elara stepped into his arms, emotion tightening her throat. "Do you remember what you told me that night?" he murmured. "That I saved you." She nodded. "You were wrong," he said. "You saved me. You showed me that I could choose more than survival. You gave me family. You gave me home." Tears blurred her vision. "I love you. And I love you." They swayed beneath the chandelier, the same gold light that had once made her feel invisible. Now it made her feel seen, loved, wanted. Outside, snow began to fall, soft and slow, as if the world itself was exhaling. Ryden kissed her once, gently. "Let's go home. The children are waiting." Hand in hand, they stepped into the night. The car door opened. Warmth waited inside. So did their life. And as the snow fell around them like blessings, Elara realized something with absolute certainty. She hadn't married a mafia boss. She hadn't married a savior. She hadn't even married the man who had changed her life. She had married her future.